Welcome to Divine Enlightenment. My name is Jeff Sizemore, and I'm here to educate you and teach you about the 42-day process to peace and prosperity. This process is actually a very easy process to do. It only takes 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night. When you decide to do this process, you need to do it consecutively for 42 days without missing or skipping a day, and then on day 43, decide to do this process for the rest of your life. In 2009, my business is failing. I'm a single father, and I feel like I'm failing in my personal life. That's when I decide to seek some help, and I find my mentor, David. David had been a successful businessman for over 25 years, but in 2000, he developed a sickness to where he could no longer be a businessman. That's when he decided to go on his own introspective spiritual journey, researching religions and researching holistic health to see if he could come up with a modality or a process to heal himself. During that time, he discovered that if you deleted your old bad neural pathways and you started creating new neural pathways, that you would actually raise your consciousness. And that by raising your consciousness and owning that you were creating the illness or sickness that you had, that you could actually heal yourself from that sickness or illness. So over the next few years, he worked on himself and overcame his sickness and illness. And that's when he started working with other people around 2006, helping them become happier and healthier in their life by using a process that he called the accelerated conscious system. This system was to reprogram your brain by deleting the old neural pathways and replacing them with new neural positive pathways. This would also have you live a life that was disconnected from your brain, and now you're living from an open heart. And he discovered as you raised your consciousness and you healed yourself that you would actually start to heal your broken heart. So I worked with David once a week for a year, starting in 2009. And by 2010, my business was no longer failing, and I started to feel more successful in my personal life. In 2010, David came to me and asked me if I wanted to join a group of like-minded people who are trying to create a better life for themselves by raising their consciousness and by doing his process, the Accelerated Conscious System, ACS. So I started meeting with the group once a week where we shared our stories and we shared our troubles in life and we shared how we were trying to raise our consciousness by deleting our old neural pathways and creating new neural pathways. I worked with this group every week from 2010 to 2013. And in 2013, David discovered that you could measure consciousness. And he tested everyone in the group to what level of consciousness they were at. And most people were around 350 to 500. And at that time, we wanted to raise our consciousness level to 883, because if you raised your conscious level to 883, you became self-actualized. By 2013, David decided to do a clinical study to prove that by raising your consciousness, you could actually heal yourself from that sickness or illness that you were creating for yourself. So over the next 2 years, I watched him work with people in the group who had a sickness, either like ADHD, asthma, depression, dementia, addiction. My daughter suffered from anorexia and bulimia, and I watched these people heal themselves from these illnesses that they were creating themselves, and they became happier and healthier within 2 years. After watching this with my own eyes, that's when I really became dedicated to trying to become self-actualized and reach a consciousness level of 883. That's when I started working on myself and started getting out of my comfort zone. We also discovered that if you got out of your comfort zone and stopped doing the same thing over and over in life, expecting life to change, and start making better choices and better decisions, if you started to learn new things, started to try new things, get a new job, end bad relationships, start learning how to play a musical instrument, or start taking college courses. That's when I started to go on the journey of getting out of my comfort zone. And in 2015, I started to learn how to speak Spanish. I started to learn how to play a guitar. I learned how to be a scuba diver, and I actually learned how to fly a plane. That's when I actually became an inventor, and I invented my own invention that I started to sell in 2018. So from 2015 to 2018, I'm really working hard on raising my consciousness. And during that time, I have a little voice come to me. And that little voice tells me that I need to start doing 10 different things in my life. I need to change my life in 10 different ways. I need to do these 10 things that included doing changes and doing different things in my business and making changes and doing different things in my personal life to become self-actualized. So I started to listen to this voice more and more over the next 3 years. And I stopped listening to David less and less over the next 3 years as I realized the little voice was really helping me become self-actualized. By 2018, I realized the group has now become more of a socialized group and not a group of people looking to raise their consciousness and become happier and healthier people. I started to feel like the group was becoming a cult, and I was trying to leave the group, but I decided that I couldn't leave the group because I was afraid if I left the group in 2018 that my consciousness would fall back to where I started and that I would start living the life that I once lived, and that's not what I wanted. So I stayed in the group from 2018 to 2020, still listening to the little voice and still trying to raise my consciousness to 883. At this time, my consciousness level was at 750 and consistently staying at 750. In the past, your consciousness would drop once you went through life experiences that may be challenging or difficult, like losing a job or having to go through a divorce or becoming sick. So now in 2018, my consciousness level is consistently at 750. I'm still going to see David once a week, and I'm still going to my group meetings once a week, but I'm starting to feel less and less that this process is helping me, and I'm feeling like the little voice is helping me more and more. By 2020, this is when COVID hits and exposes the group to the cult that I thought it was in 2018. In March of 2020, I decided to leave the group because now I believe it's a cult. Once I leave the group, this is when I lose my community, my family, which was David and the group. I lost my relationship with my daughter because she decided to stay in the group when I decided to leave. My daughter is still in that group to this day, and I haven't spoken to her in over 6 years. In 2020, that's when the voice came to me and said I needed to develop my own process to replace the process that I was doing with David and the group. And that's when I realized the little voice that was speaking to me was actually God. And I really started listening to God. And that's when God helped me develop the 42-day process to peace and prosperity. And I started doing that process in 2020. And that's what kept me at 750 and then actually helped me raise my consciousness to 1,000. My consciousness level right now is 1,000, and I'm self-enlightened. And that's why I'm here to educate you and teach you the 42-day process so you can raise your consciousness level to 1,000 in 42 days. In 2021, I had a friend, a very close friend, who was suffering from bipolar and depression. She had been suffering for many, many years from being bipolar and having depression. And so that's when I actually decided to take her through the 42-day process to see if it would actually work on another person. She went through the 42-day process, and by the end of the 42-day process, she no longer experienced being bipolar, she no longer experienced being depressed, and she started to live a life that she always dreamed of living. Now in 2021 to 2025, I'm focusing on trying to sell my invention on Amazon, and I'm focusing on doing the 42-day process every day. And then in 2025, I decide that I need to team up with another person who's a life coach, and maybe we could start coaching people the 42-day process and see if that would help people overcome their sickness and help those people become happier and healthier and help those people start to live a more productive life. So I started to work with my friend Carrie, who was a life coach. But by the end of 2025, I realized you can't coach this process. You can teach this process, but you can't coach this process. That's when God came to me at the end of 2025 and asked me to develop a YouTube channel where I could educate and teach people the 42-day process. That channel is now called Divine Enlightenment. So in my next video, I'm going to educate you and teach you about why you would want to do this process, the 42-day process to peace and prosperity. So you're going to want to watch that video if you want to stop being sick and you want to stop being a victim in life.